It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Giving money to people to get into the market doesn't address the underlying issue of increasing house prices. It's, as you said, a temporary stopgap to help people afford to get on the property ladder in the short term, but house prices just keep rising.
And that is Paul O'Riordan from the Blue Mountains, and we'll be getting back to that conversation in just a moment as we welcome you back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast on our long Easter weekend break. And if you're travelling today, take it easy out there. There are plenty of dangerous people who can stop you from arriving to your destination. And if you've got this road rage within you, don't be confrontational this weekend, because in today's world, let's face it, you can never ever predict the outcome if you start doing some road rage on somebody. So play it safe and count to 10, which is probably one of the most underrated things when it comes to losing your cool. Just count to 10. You'll feel much different by the time you get to 10. And it might be Easter, but we are rolling through with more of your property insights and interviews, connecting you to the best real estate information across Australia 7 days a week. And we are streaming on multiple platforms right now, including Amazon. Well, the weekend continues. It is a Saturday morning, April the 19th, as we head to the federal election. It's no surprise that the cost of living and soaring house prices are dominating the headlines. Are they what? Both major parties are rolling out promises to help ease the pressure on the Aussie households, but are these policies actually helping, or are they just making things worse? This morning we're going to be taking a closer look at past housing stimulus efforts to figure out if they're truly making homes more affordable, or if they've just sort of made it worse, like pouring fuel onto an already burning housing crisis. Actually, that reminds me of that David Bowie line, putting out fire with gasoline, and you never want to be doing that. So we are off to the Blue Mountains to catch up with Paul O'Riordan. A very good morning to you, Paul. Welcome into the Real Estate Breakfast.
Good morning, Craig. Very nice to be with you again.
And I've been putting out fire with gasoline.
Oh, yeah. That is a great way to start on our Saturday morning, putting out fire with gasoline. A little bit of music there, Paul. Are you a Bowie fan?
I am. I'm a very big fan of Bowie. Starman, probably my favourite one of his, or Under Pressure with Freddie Mercury. I really like that one.
Oh, yeah. That song, Putting Out Fire with Gasoline, 1982. It is Bowie at his best, but it really does sort of potentially set up what these politicians are doing. First off, let's look at the different stimulus policies that have been introduced by governments over the years, Paul, to assist in property ownership.
Look, the stimulus began back in the year 2000 with the Howard government's introduction of the first home owner grant. This was a payment of $7,000 to buy an existing home, or $14,000 if you were buying a new home or building. It was introduced as a temporary measure, and that word temporary is important, to offset the impact of the GST tax system on first home buyers. The grant was boosted in 2008, so not much of a temporary, due to the GFC, and then ran continuously up until 2010, when it was taken over by state governments, where it's seen various changes over time. But over the last 7 or 8 years, this is the list of stimulus we've had. So the first home super saver scheme, the first home buyer deposit scheme, the home owner builder grant, the federal budget home buyer scheme. And in unison to all this federal stimulus, state governments across the eastern seaboard have given stamp duty exemptions and concessions to help first home buyers. So as you can see, Craig, there's been no shortage of stimulus in the Australian housing market. And according to the upcoming election, we're going to see some more, I think.
Yes, that's a good little bit of a breakdown, and it should be pointed out that it's one thing for politicians to try and woo voters to vote for different pieces of housing policy, but what is the reality here? Has the stimulus been effective in achieving what it is setting out to do? What do you think?
Look, you'd have to say yes, but in part. So look, lowering or removing the barriers to home ownership has allowed thousands of first home buyers to enter the property market, which is a great thing. And in many areas of the Blue Mountains, where I frequently work with first home buyers, there's no question that these stimulus measures have helped and had a positive impact on people getting onto the property ladder. If, however, the intention was to reduce house prices, none of the past stimulus has achieved that.
And just before we go to the break, how is the Blue Mountains been going for you over the last 6 to 7 weeks?
Look, it's been going very well. We're talking first home buyers. There is a lot of those around, and anything under kind of 950 is selling quite quickly. The ones over $1 million, depending on the suburbs, are taking a little bit longer. Days on market are stretching on that end.
All right, we are talking to Paul there in the Blue Mountains. When we come back, we're going to look at the lolly scramble from the politicians. We'll do that next.
From the emotion of property, the economic inflation, managing your expectations, lack of stock, price growth, construction appetite, days on the market. Stay informed with us and know your property.
Now, the time to save for a 20% deposit for an entry-priced home for a couple aged between 25 and 34. In Melbourne, for a house, that is taking you about 5 years and 1 month. For a unit, 3 years and 5 months. Still reasonable amount of time, isn't it, to be saving? What are the conditions at the moment that you're looking at with people that are trying very, very hard to save for that 20% deposit?
Yeah, it is hard. And I do think in some instances the bank will lend 90% still. It's such a varying range, I guess, situations with different buyers. It is a big ask to save the 20% and then the on costs as well, obviously, including the conveyancing, stamp duty, etc. But I guess everyone's situation's different. There are buyers out there that have saved that money and that are ready to go. There are buyers out there that are looking towards their family for assistance to be able to get that 20%, to be able to get out of the rental market, be able to purchase, and then even potentially be able to pay that money back to whether it be their mother or father or both over a length of time.
Explore new property destinations where you could live with exclusive interviews covering real estate news and market insights.
And it is a long weekend, Easter Saturday. We are talking to Paul O'Riordan there in the Blue Mountains. So, Paul, let's look at the here and now. The elections are coming up very, very fast. A lolly scramble has ensued. It always does. And amazes me how we fall for this sort of sugar hit is probably the best way to describe it. But we are all very guilty of getting caught up in these great sounding ideas from politicians. But has this stimulus affected housing prices and affordability?
Look, without question, I mean, you look, giving money to people to get into the market doesn't address the underlying issue of increasing house prices. It's, as you said, a temporary stopgap to help people afford to get on the property ladder in the short term. But house prices just keep rising, which in turn forces governments, as we're seeing, to continue increase more stimulus. And evidence of this is seen when you look at the stamp duty exemptions. So from 2017 to 2023, homes valued up to $650,000 were exempt from duty, with concessions for homes up to $800,000. Now, this covered many markets around the state, especially in the Blue Mountains. In 2023, this exempt value rose to $800,000, with concessions up to $1 million, because trying to find a home, priced below $650,000 became just about impossible.
Wow, yeah, that's really interesting, just sort of breaking it down as you're doing. So how much do you think the current government policies and these new proposed ideas are really shaking out for the real estate sector in this cycle? Are they really helping with housing affordability, or are they completely misdirected and missing the mark altogether?
Look, we've had stimulus in New South Wales now for the last quarter of a century, which is a very long time, and house prices have never been less affordable. Previously, we spoke, Craig, the Sydney median house price in the year 2000 was 4 times the household average income. That has risen this year to 10 times the household income. So, of course, stimulus alone hasn't caused this dramatic rise in house prices. Factors such as limited housing supply, increased demand, lower interest rates in places, and tax incentives have all combined to create our current dilemma. At the end of the day, Australians have a strong affinity for real estate. I don't see that changing anytime soon. I think the challenge for our politicians and policymakers is how to address the issues in a way that fosters the sustainable growth we want, but ensures the future generations aren't priced out of the market entirely.
Yes, well said, well said. Yes, just how we fix it is going to be a long-term solution, no doubt about that. As I mentioned, it is a Saturday, Easter. What are you doing for your Easter break?
I'm pursuing an Easter bunny in the backyard and having a bit of downtime, which is very much look forward to, and spending some time with the kids because they're on holidays. So I think I'm going to have a very nice weekend, mate.
Yeah, well, enjoy all of the sugar hit of your own kind and the chocolates this weekend.
A little bit nicer than the politician's sugar hit, I can tell you that.
All right then, Paul, have yourself a great weekend. We will catch you next time.
Thank you, Craig.
Decode the property market with insider knowledge and insights to better navigate your real estate journey, including inspiring stories from homeowners, knowledgeable real estate professionals and economists. Whether you're a buyer, seller, or just a real estate enthusiast, we are your ultimate property podcast.
Well, when you compare Sydney and Melbourne appears to be a vastly more affordable option, particularly if you're one of those first-home buyers that is trying to get a foothold into the property ladder.
Look, fractional ownership is the same thing. Basically, co-ownership, syndicated ownership just indicates that you are an owner. In our circumstance, you are an owner on the title.
Tell us a little bit about that rule change.
We were fully expecting it, and it was basically bringing us into line with all the other states around Australia. But pretty much now, if a tenant is living in a property and wants to have a pet, they can put in an application.
Yeah, look, it's interesting to watch play out. Most intelligent people that I've listened to about tariffs are all of the understanding that it's not going to achieve the outcome that he's hoping for. So then you have to wonder what is the actual outcome that he's hoping for, which we spoke about off air earlier, and wonder whether he's actually playing a different game for personal benefit and benefit of his friends.
You know, that's 100% accurate, but it's a thought that I think is there. I'm actually trying to imagine my sort of life right now and having to pay a mortgage and then also raise 1 or 2 children and also have to work.
While Sydney was up almost 30%, Brisbane up almost 70%, Adelaide over 70%, and Perth up 75%. We can see that Melbourne really has lagged over the course of the past 5 years.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.